Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special midweek edition of Tim's News Explosion. Since it has been raining news this week, and no, that's not because we're getting a La Niña forecast this summer by the Australian Bureau of Meteorology, which, as the dark blue of the colour suggests, it's going to be cold, wet, and rainy. It's the opposite of El Nino. I think we had a couple of years back in the summer of 2019-20 when the Black Summer bushfires hit. It's also not, well, this is also a special edition of the show, but it is also going to be the week's, traditional edition of Tim's News Explosion, because Mondays was an extra special explosion where I had on my producer, Margot Huss, and also filmer for The Unshackled, Andy Notch, to have a debrief about the very large and peaceful Melbourne Freedom Rally this past Saturday on 20th of November. So there was a lot to cover there. Tonight is obviously the Thursday, the 25th of November, 2021. We are live, as always, on the Wilmsfront YouTube and DLive channels, as well as on the interactive Entropy software. Hello to all my regulars in the YouTube live chat. I put the link to the Entropy there. I see that Margot's in the chat tonight. She says that I'm less of a retard in the chat. Oh, you're being very harsh on yourself, Margot. I thought you were all right on Monday night. Hello there, Colin. So there's been some further developments of what we reported in the aftermath of the debrief of the Melbourne Freedom Rally on Saturday, which was attended by, it's hard to estimate the crowd, hundreds of thousands of Victorians. And of course, the rally was held after the day after the medicing hoax, where Animal Justice Party MLC and supporter of Dan Andrews' permanent pandemic laws, the pandemic management bill, claimed that his daughter, Killeen, was targeted in a street attack because of who her father was. He said he had evidence that it was a politically motivated attack. So we've had Victoria Police, the police commissioner, Shane Patton, was on Radio 3AW this morning. Sky News is just as bad with their autoplays than news.com.au and the Daily Mail. So Shane Patton, the police commissioner, said, "We don't have any evidence or intelligence to that effect. No, that it wasn't related to her father being an MP. So he told host Neil Mitchell it was probable charges would be laid in the event they could identify the man who allegedly chased Miss Medic down Smith Street in the Melbourne Southern Fitzroy before throwing a spray can at her head. It's important to note that she threw the spray can at the man first, missing him. He approached her while she was graffitiing over an anti-vax poster, which was probably a Melbourne Freedom Rally poster, I don't know. But yes, that led to an argument and then the spray can throwing. So Miss Medic required stitches after her eye, after she was left with 3 centimetre gash in her head. So yes, it's basically disappeared from the news cycle there, but we had Neil Mitchell on 3AW, who sometimes he says sensible stuff, Neil Mitchell, other times he just says ridiculous things, but he brought up with the police commissioner that followed up on that story, which was quickly buried after a Victoria Police statement later on Friday afternoon debunked what Andy Medic had said. And now we had Andy Medic last week because he claims that the Kill the Bill protesters and freedom activists are extreme people, and that he called on Matthew Guy to denounce all these extremists that his MPs had mingled with. He also said last week under parliamentary privilege, this is how he referred to Rebel News reporter Avi Yemeni.
I saw a known neo-Nazi reporter out there with his neo-Nazi mate.
And Avi Yemeni challenged Andy Medic to go outside of the parliament where he's not protected by parliamentary privilege to say that, obviously implying that if Andy Medic did say that outside of parliament, he would sue him. But of course, Andy Medic didn't go outside of parliament to say that. And now, obviously, we reported on Monday that there had been a positive case linked to the anti-freedom protest organised by the Socialist Alternative front group, the campaign against racism and fascism, despite them all being double vaxxed and masked. Maybe some of them were even wearing double masks. Their AV guy tested positive, and I have it on high authority from a reliable source that there's a second case linked to the calf cluster, a case that was, a person has tested positive who was in the vicinity of that calf protest area near the 8-hour monument. They're going to be back on December 4. The calf with another Stop the Far Right rally. They're not even bothering. Maybe they've all got to isolate for 14 days still after their super spreader event and have three or four tests. So they're not even going to this Saturday's. Well, it's organised by a different group. It's Melbourne Freedom Rally. They are supporting this Saturday's protest, which is organised by a different group, Millions March Against Mandatory Vaccination and Passports, which is led by Micah Sims. So that is at midday on, this Saturday, 27th of November, Parliament House Stairs, Melbourne, and there's millions marches all around Australia. And based on the numbers last week, if you include all the numbers of all the rallies around Australia on this Saturday, they could get over 1 million. It could be, if you include all the crowds all over Australia, it could be a literal millions march there, which would obviously be an even more incredible turnout than last week. So as I mentioned, Melbourne Freedom Rally are supporting them. Now, there was a Stop the Far Right counter rally at the Sydney Freedom Rally, which was part of the world, as I mentioned, not just Australia-wide, but worldwide as well. Now, this was one of the keynote speakers for the anti-fascist, Stop the Far Right, pro-public health, a campaign against racism and fascism protests in Sydney.
Comrades, today we're here because there are a bunch of fascists and Nazis in Hyde Park supposedly protesting in favour of freedom.
Did you all get a glimpse of that? You couldn't miss that female speaker there, in that luckily we have widescreen there today, so you could see all of her there. But yeah, clearly she was giving a speech with a mask on, and based on the size of her, I don't think the mask is going to to save her. Maybe it would actually do her if she keeps it on all the time. Then she won't eat as much. Maybe if she goes on a diet that she can only basically consume food and drink that fits through their mask, like adopt the Dan Andrews. You can't remove your mask to consume alcohol rule there. And now one of the anti-fascist groups have shared around a meme, which I'll bring it up here. It's how to tell if a protest movement is far right. The far right has been using progressive slogans and human rights language and attracting a diverse range of people concerned about lockdowns and vaccines. So if you find yourself at a protest, these are some of the indicators to look for to spot if you're in a far right protest movement. Active involvement of libertarians. Many have far right or fascist views. I'm pretty sure, well, I'm a libertarian, so I know for sure that the libertarian philosophy is the exact opposite of the philosophy of fascism. The presence of Proud Boys or other known far right groups commonly spotted at anti-lockdown protests. Australian flags worn as capes, patches, or flown. Yes, patriotism, love of Australia is far right, according to these people. Red in seeing Australian flags adopted by sovereign citizens. Attempts to sing the national anthem. Oh no. Claims that a global elite bankers a new world order or the UN are behind COVID. Variations of an old anti-Semitic conspiracy tropes. How's the New World Order linked to anti-Semitism? Obviously, they have said that the slogan New World Order is anti-Semitic to stop people criticizing the New World Order, which is not a conspiracy theory. When you had New South Wales Chief Health Officer Dr. Kerry Chant and Health Minister Brad Hazzard talk about the New World Order. A focus on individual rights and economic interests rather than a collective rights or the rights of elderly, disabled, or vulnerable. It's funny that they mention that only they represent the rights of the elderly, disabled, and vulnerable. I've seen plenty of elderly, disabled, and vulnerable people at the pro-freedom rallies because, well, we've seen over the past 20 months many people who've died with COVID not be able to die with dignity. That is one of the favorite phrases of the far left. Euthanasia, dying with dignity legislation just passed the New South Wales Parliament, but we had so many of the elderly die last year alone, or not with friends and family, literally in a room with faceless strangers covered in PPE and weren't given a dignified send-off with only 10 masked people allowed. Claim that anyone left of Scott Morrison is communist. Well, I'd say that's an accurate statement. I mean, most to the left of Scott Morrison are communist or communist sympathizers. I mean, anyone to the left of Scott Morrison is pretty much an apologist for the Chinese Communist Party. The movement, the involvement of actual Nazis, many known neo-Nazis that have been active in the anti-lockdown movement. The absence of actual human rights activists or groups with a track record in social change. What are actual human rights activists? How do you define that? It's like the old thing, who's an accredited real journalist. So the bottom says, warning, any of these is a strong indication that the protest you are part of is heavily influenced by the far right. If you spot most or all of them, get out now. Now, I'm sure that they've tried to use this this list, the far left, against their previous idol, EggBoy Will Connolly, who they praised as a hero for egging former Senator Fraser Anning at the Melbourne launch of his Conservative National Party. But EggBoy has matured into Eggman, and he's pretty much demonstrated throughout the pandemic that he can think for himself, is a free thinker, come a long way since spotted at Victorian Labor HQ at the 2019 federal election. And Avi Yemeni of Rebel News caught up with him again on Saturday.
Left, right wing, I don't care. Unity and love. If a leader leads and brings people together, that's what I want. And that's my compass, and I follow that. And I look and I don't see that from our current situation. And that's why I'm here supporting. This started with 300 people. Look around, hundreds of thousands. Fear does weird things to people, man. And, you know, I'd like to give them compassion. And if they want to be compassionate to everyone, they're not. And I think that it comes down to humility. I think the big problem right now is not wanting to know, ignorance. The opposite of that is curiosity. And in order to be curious, you have to assume that you have something to learn. And I think that brings people together. And I think that's really important.
Who would have thought 5 years ago, EggBoy and Avi Yemeni standing in a park together, united
not me.
against Antifa. Love it.
Now, also at the Freedom Rally on Saturday were, they're the two patriots who restrained EggBoy once he egged Fraser Anning until the police removed him. That was Neil Erikson and Ricky T. So it would have been, I'd say, even more, I would say, incredible if EggBoy had run into Neil and Ricky T and they'd sort of embraced, and that would have really made the far left's heads explode. I mean, they were whipped up to a frenzy over Neil because he photobombed, or video bombed one of Rukshan's live streams, not this Monday, but last Monday evening. And so the far left, they claimed that Rukshan and Neil were associates, and they also cited as evidence this supposed super chat from Rukshan, clearly a fake account. This was shared by one of the far left accounts called Wacker. It says, also here with other Nazis, Rukshan, who acts like he is not friends with violent neo-Nazis. And this fake Rukshan account super chats on one of Neil's live streams, says, looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. This was Neil, Jazz Searby and Blair Cottrell's Friday night live stream there. So yeah, they thought they had all the evidence that Rukshan was guilty by association of being a far right agent. And so Neil on his Senator Slayer channel this afternoon aired this clarification.
Hello, I am Neil Erikson, CEO of Cook's Convicts. This is an official statement regarding an image depicting myself and Rukshan at a rave party at the Freedom protest on, I believe it was Tuesday night last week. This image has been sent out all throughout the internet machines, and everyone has viewed it, and the left, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the left, please stop being racially abusive to Rukshan. He did not know who I was. That night, I crept up behind Rukshan and I got my phone out and I quickly said, can I get a selfie with you, bro? And he said, yeah, sure, and I took a selfie. He did not know who I was. We are not connected. I have never spoke to Rukshan other than that incident. So let's put this to bed, and please, lefties, leave Rukshan alone. He does not deserve this racial abuse. He's just a journalist. He's getting out there filming both sides of protests. There is no need to threaten him or to racially abuse him. He is a victim of left-wing violence. Secondly, I'd like to address, as the CEO of Cook's Convicts and with the support of the 2IC, Ricky T, we are not part of a terrorist organisation. Recently, the government has prescribed the base as a terror organisation. It is claimed to be a far-right neo-Nazi organisation. We at Cook's Convicts do not join groups that were created by the FBI. And secondly, we definitely do not join groups that would have people like us as members. So hopefully this has addressed all the controversies out there and we can all just relax and move on. Leave Rukshan alone, please.
Now, Neil is referring to this statement by the new Home Affairs Minister, Karen Andrews, MP, who announced on Thursday that the Morrison government would list 2 new terror organisations. Well, they'll be listed by the Australian government as terrorist organisations, which mean they're banned in Australia, and anyone who's a member of it can face severe prosecution. So it is all of Hezbollah, which is the Lebanese Palestinian linked Islamist terror group, and also the far-right white supremacist neo-Nazi training group, the Base, which I'd never heard of until basically it was broadcast by first Alex Mann from the ABC on an episode of Background Briefing, and featured as part of Nick Mackenzie's 60 Minutes expose on the Nazis next door. And both of them bragged about their respective stories and claimed credit for helping to list this group that no one had ever heard of until they told us about this group. They claim credit for it now being listed as a terrorist organization. Alex Mann's tweet, in fact, he credited the work of the White Rose Society for helping to expose the Base, which White Rose Society has been around for a number of years, doxing patriot activists as well as actual neo-Nazis as well. And he also thanked Jason Wilson, an Antifa sympathizing journalist at the Guardian. So both Alex Mann and Nick Mackenzie, they basically admitted that they openly work with all these far left groups to gather the research for their stories. Now, moving on to other developments, and Australia is once again in the international spotlight for our quarantine camps and vaccine mandates. This is because there has been an outbreak of COVID in remote Northern Territory Aboriginal communities. And Michael Gunner, the Chief Minister of the NT, he went way hard against people who are anti-vaccine mandate, calling them anti-vaxxers, and also shipping all positive COVID cases in remote Aboriginal communities and close contacts to the Howard Springs quarantine camp. So this was his, I'll let him speak for himself.
If you are anti-mandate, you are absolutely anti-vax. I don't care what your personal vaccination status is. If you support, champion, give a green light, give comfort to, support anybody who argues against the vaccine, you are an anti-vaxxer. Absolutely. Your personal vaccination status is utterly irrelevant. If you campaign against the mandate, if you campaign against people being vaccinated in vulnerable settings, teachers in classrooms, I'll be really clear, at that point in time, people were actually supporting the idea of a teacher being unvaccinated in a remote community classroom with kids who cannot be vaccinated. I reject that, Eileen. I still reject it. And if you are out there in any way, shape or form campaigning against this mandate, you are absolutely anti-vax. If you say pro-persuasion, stuff it, shove it. We are absolutely going to make sure as many Territorians as possible are vaccinated. That is our best protection against this thing. And if you look at the Doherty modelling that's only come out since, that says if you double dose 80 in remote communities, 5 and up, I think you'll see our vaccine mandate is absolutely crucial to protecting lives, particularly Aboriginal lives. And I will never back away from supporting vaccines. And anyone out there who comes for the mandate, you are anti-vax. As you know, last night we took an urgent action to escalate our response in these communities, immediately implementing a hard lockdown. That means residents of Binjari and Rockall no longer have the 5 reasons to leave their home. They can only leave for medical treatment in an emergency or if required by law. It's highly likely that more residents will be transferred to Howard Springs today, either as positive cases or close contacts. We've already identified 38 close contacts in Binjari, and that number will go up. Those 38 are being transferred now. I contacted the Prime Minister last night. We are grateful for the support of about 20 ADF personnel as well as army trucks to assist with the transfer of positive cases and close contacts and to support the communities.
And now this has been covered extensively in the international media, both Michael Gunner's rants, which he would call me an anti-vaxxer because even though I'm double vaxxed, I believe that we shouldn't have a two-tiered society with segregation between the vaxxed and the unvaxxed, and there shouldn't be any mandates. People shouldn't lose their jobs because they're unvaxxed, and I'm happy to mix with my unvaccinated friends and colleagues. I mean, I was in the same. Well, I was up close with Margot and Andy on the weekend, so you know, because I am friends with people who are not vaccinated. Therefore, I'm an anti-vaxxer, and so he lumps me in as basically an enemy of his state. Rebel News Australian writer Alexandra Marshall wrote about this. Australian Army called in to transfer Indigenous COVID contacts to quarantine camps. And so basically any remote NT community where a positive case is, it goes into a hard lockdown. If any Aborigines or they're mainly Aboriginal towns, but if anyone tries to escape, then they get a $5,000 fine. So basically Dan Andrews eat your heart out. There have been people who've claimed that there's been forced vaccinations in the Northern Territory of Indigenous people. A video by June Mills went viral online. So did the Instagram video of an account, Voice of First Nations. This was the report, follow-up report today from Alexandra Marshall, because Jacinta Price, who is the Country Liberal Party Senate candidate for the next election, has backed Michael Gunner. She has said that urges community not to buy into the nonsense and lies. She did a Facebook Live on her video on her Facebook page yesterday. She said there have been some Facebook posts of some very distressed people, and what I urge is people to remain calm, don't get whipped up into a frenzy, and don't allow people's frenzies to get whipped up and concerned. What is happening in these communities, whereas the COVID outbreak near Catherine is, yes, the ADF have about 85 personnel supporting the Territory government there on behalf of the Territory and the federal government to support ensuring the people that were living in, vulnerable people who are living in overcrowded houses, are able to spend time isolation in dealing with this pandemic. And goes on to say there is nothing different to the way Indigenous people are being treated as the way of everybody else. The circumstances are different the circumstances are different to other parts of Australia. Nobody is being held down and forced to be given the COVID-19 vaccination. Nobody is being forced against their will. There have been some individuals who've tried to abscond these areas that are supposed to be isolating. Some of these people are dealing with the fact that they're confronted with issues like alcohol addiction, so it's a fragile set of circumstances there. So this is the video that I was talking talking about from the Instagram account, Voices of First Nation. And so, as Naughty Design mentioned in the chat, Michael Gunner had another spray today at the tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists. I'll play that for you now.
Finally, before I pass to Dr. Payne, I know we are all very aware of the huge amount of misinformation spreading online in the last few days. I don't really want to lean into the lies that are being spread, although given these press conferences generally get spliced up by international trolls. Hello to all the conspiracy theorists overseas watching this, please get a life. I don't want to go into their lies because that just gives them more oxygen, and their lies are dangerous. So I'll just say a few things about this. I acknowledge local media for their informative and respectful coverage. Hard questions get asked without innocent, anxious people being demonised or deceived. I know there are ridiculous, untrue rumours about the ADF's involvement. As we all know, they aren't carrying weapons, they are carrying fresh food for people. There's obviously a lot of crap spreading about the Centre for National Resilience. As we all know, Howard Springs is the gold standard facility in Australia for COVID quarantine and care. So I urge people not to worry about the insane, unhinged stuff that's spreading online, and that overwhelmingly comes from people who don't live here and know nothing about us. 99.99% of the BS that's flying around the internet about the territory is coming from flogs outside the territory, mostly America, Canada and the UK. People who have nothing better to do than make up lies about us because their own lives are so small and so sad. We don't need to pay any more attention to them. We don't need to listen to them. And if anybody thinks that we are going to be distracted or intimidated by tinfoil hat wearing tossers sitting in their parents' basements in Florida, then you do not know us Territorians. Thank you.
Now, I wonder if the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who has previously slammed the Australian government's and its state government's police state response to the pandemic, I wonder if he'll respond to Michael Gunner's accusations that all the critics of his or removing people from Aboriginal communities to take them to the Howard Springs quarantine camp, National Centre for Resilience. There was this meme that I saw, which sums up what people such as myself are concerned, because science, health and safety rights. So they removed the Aboriginal community COVID cases out of this area to put them into this area. I do recall that when during the New South Wales wave and lockdown, when COVID cases swept through, as the media reported at the rural Aboriginal town of Wakenya, New South Wales doesn't have a COVID quarantine camp. So they didn't remove the Aboriginal people of Wakenya. In fact, they trucked in makeshift quarantine, basically tents that, so because, well, you heard Jacinta Price said they need to be taken out because it's overcrowding. Well, in Kenya, they basically just set up some new tent isolation buildings so the people of Kenya could stay there while they were isolating as positive cases or close contacts. So rather than moving them to hundreds of kilometers away, why not bring the quarantine facilities to them? It's, to say the least, much better optics for the NT government and the Australian government. Margot said in the chat, I'll go up to see if I can find a comment. Oh gosh, didn't think anyone could make me more sick than dictator, but this guy takes the cake. Well, Mark McGowan McLeod over in Western Australia is still pretty bad. I mean, he is not going to be opening up Western Australia to the rest of Australia and the world until, well, early next year, when his state eventually reaches 90% double dosed of over 12s. And, well, he's pretty confident the state will reach that target because he has mandated all workers to get the jab. And so the protests have increased against McGowan, and also, well, led to some people threatening him and his staff and his family. He shut his Rockingham electorate office. There's also talk that he'll have to be able to leave his family home, because there was an incident where a man earlier this year went to his private home wanted to confront him, so he and his family had to hide inside the house. And we've had 2 men charged after allegedly making threats to behead Premier Mark McGowan. So police allege the man aged 18 to 20 phoned the Premier late on Saturday because his number has been leaked to the media, left a number of threatening messages. They've been charged with acts of creating false apprehension as to the existence of threats or danger, and about subject to strict protective conditions. So they'll face the Armidale Magistrates Court next month. Police Minister Paul Papalia on Tuesday did not deny that the latest alleged threats involved the beheading of the Premier and his family. They're extraordinary, crazy, the sort of thing that you might expect of terrorists. That is the nature of the threats that were made. When you make a threat to someone's life, it is a serious matter. The police will treat it appropriately, and I anticipate so will the courts. Because of a lot of these various threats that people have made to McGowan, he has tried the Dan Andrews tactic of lumping in all of those opposed to his mandates and hard border as extremists who want to hurt his family, which is not the case at all. We had, this extraordinary case involving a teenager who breached WA checkpoints to see his terminally ill mum, a Western Australian teenager who sped through a COVID border checkpoint at 230 kilometres an hour after repeatedly being refused entry into the state to see his pregnant and terminally ill mother, has copped a lifetime driving suspension, and been fined $3,000. 17-year-old Perth Magistrates Court on Tuesday via the Banksia Hill Juvenile Detention Centre, where he's been remanded in custody and quarantined from other detainees for the past 2 weeks, as he was considered an extreme risk traveller. The teenager, who was living in Sydney when he had at least 5 G2 Hello, can you hear me? What did I get up to here? I'm unmuted here. I don't know how I got muted. That was really weird. You should be able to hear me. Now, okay. Okay, where was I? Because I was on quite a rant there about McLean's inhumane hard border closure. So where it was about 9:10. Where did I go? Oh yes. So, all right, I might wrap up the show there. Maybe that was a sign that, well, I've gone over to 41 minutes. Maybe it's a sign now that I should wrap up the show. Now, as I mentioned, there is another freedom protest in Melbourne on Saturday afternoon as part of the Millions March against mandatory vaccination and passports. It's a nationwide. The Victorian Parliament resumes on November 30, where the pandemic legislation will go before Victoria's upper house and will be debated. The Victorian Andrews government has been working on trying to get another crossbencher over the line after Adam Somniak, former Labor MLC turned independent, spectacularly returned to Parliament last week to vote it down. We had today the various health unions back the permanent pandemic bills. And so this is the Australian Nursing and Midwifery Federation, Victorian branch, Australian Medical Association of Victoria, the Salaried Medical Officers Federation and the Victorian Ambulance Union issued a statement on Thursday backing the bill. So we had down here, Lisa Fitzpatrick, she's from the Australian Nursing and Midwifery Federation. The debate venue has swung into toxic political territory, focusing on personalities and revenge rather than protecting Victorians and our health workforce. Meanwhile, beyond exhausted nurses and midwives feel taken for granted while the critics pretend the pandemic is over. We are furious at the self-indulgence. And so the ambulance union, Denny Hill, said politicians need to put vulnerable patients, health workers and health system before their own bruised egos. AMA Victoria President Roderick McRae said, now was not the time for idealistic, preferable legal arguments. So basically, they are okay with the Premier given the absolute power to declare a pandemic, and their health minister appointed by the Premier to issue health orders by decree, to issue lockdowns, various restrictions. And as I don't know why these medical unions, they saw that the sixth lockdown didn't work, that cases went astronomically through the roof. They were still lobbying for lockdown to keep being extended, and we've had since the lockdown lift. Cases have roughly halved in Victoria. They're around about 1,000 per day, but hospitalizations have plummeted. And you can see how they're gaslighting. They're saying if you don't support these permanent pandemic laws giving absolute power to the executive, then you don't like healthcare workers. That's such a disingenuous statement, as if giving the Premier the power to declare pandemics and mandate lockdowns is somehow going to protect healthcare workers when, as I said, lockdown number 6 did not work, and since we've reopened, cases have gone down, hospitalizations have plummeted. They've gone from about 800 people in hospital with COVID to around 300 there. So there's a extremely strong argument that we no longer need any state of emergency pandemic powers. We had New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet confirmed that the state of New South Wales is going to become one again on December 15th, and they'll be scaling back QR codes in supermarkets, retail and shopping centres. But we don't know whether Victoria, Dan Andrews, is, refusing to put an end date on the vaccinated economy, said it'll go into 2022, and even it hasn't ruled out mandating the jabs for 5 to 11-year-olds and having them part of the vaccinated economy. But that's it for tonight's special Tim's News Explosion. I'll be back tomorrow night for Trad Tasman Talk, 6 p.m. Melbourne time on the Unshackled YouTube channel. Dewey de Boer will be back with me because there's been political turmoil in New Zealand with the National Party leader Judith Collins being rolled in a leadership spill. She only had 5% popularity against Jacinta Ardern. So there'll be a lot to cover with Dewey and New Zealand by December 3 transitioning to its traffic light COVID protection framework there. So there'll be a lot to cover with him. Stephen Berry is taking some time off. Me and Andy Nolch didn't get down to the Parliament House dance floor on Tuesday night. The stars didn't align. The Melbourne City Council is trying to evict the Occupy Spring Street people from the steps of Parliament. There's still people around there. We may go and check it out later tomorrow evening after Trad Tasman Talk, but we'll definitely be covering the Millions March against mandatory vaccinations and passports on Saturday. So take care, everyone. Stay safe and stay sane, and I'll see you again tomorrow night.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.